Welcome to Hispanic Biz, Stories of Success, where we interview Hispanic entrepreneurs who have built significant businesses to learn from them their stories and the saga of their life and how the business has resulted to make a contribution in our society. We're fortunate today to have with us a story, a very renowned story from Fermin Dorado. Mr. Dorado is an engineer and the owner of Dorado Engineering. Thank you, Mr. Dorado, for coming. I appreciate your taking time.
I'm glad to be here, Homero.
Thank you.
You know, I always willing to help and maybe tell my story, maybe do some good to somebody.
Good. Well, Mr. Dorado, you've been very involved with LULAC for many years, and of course, I came to know you when you were city engineer. But let's start with your story. You weren't born in El Paso.
No, that's correct. I was born in Jimenez, Chihuahua. It's about 300 miles south of Juarez.
And
I was raised there by my grandfather. I grew up with my grandfather.
And what age did you come to El Paso?
I came to El Paso about 12 years old.
And your parents had come before, right?
All my parents had already resided here in El Paso, and I have chosen to grow up with my grandfather. But when I finished, I think it was the sixth grade in Mexico, my grandfather kind of kicked me out and said, "It's time for you to move on. You need to go back. You need to go see cómo viven los gringos."
Tell me about your grandfather, because you admire him a lot.
Oh, I admire my grandfather very much because I think my character and part of the person that I am, I owe it to him. You know, he was a farmer. He was not a very wealthy farmer. He was still using the mule and the plow as a farmer. He was a very proud man. He refused to work for anybody other than himself. He had a couple of farms that he did very well. And with that, you know, he raised 15 kids.
15 kids.
Yes.
And what did you learn from your grandfather?
Oh, my grandfather, what I learned from my grandfather, of course, was hard work, dedication, loyalty. I learned the values of life from him. He was a very, I want to say learned man, but he had a lot of experience in life. My grandfather died when he was 98 years old.
Wow.
So he lived a long life and always a very proud man. So
Wow, he lived to 98, and your father is?
my father right now is 95 years old.
Wow.
So seems like we come from a long-lasting families.
So your mother and father were already in El Paso?
Yes,
And
they
you-
were here with my sisters. I had 3 sisters and 2 brothers. That they were here. Yes.
What did your father do?
My father, he worked at Fort Bliss, and he used to be a maintenance person at Fort Bliss. And he retired finally when they kicked him out too. He didn't want to retire,
Yeah.
but he did well for himself too. You know.
And your mother, did she work too?
My mother also worked. She worked as a seamstress. She worked in Hortex for many years, and of course this was to support the family. We come from a very humble family. There are 8 of us, so it took some doing, especially people working at a low wage scale to support a family that size.
So you lived in South El Paso?
We live in South El Paso. You know, I remember growing up in the tenements, and perhaps there were probably I have very, very good and happy memories of growing up in the tenements. As much as a lot of people say that it was not very comfortable, and it wasn't. But growing up, to me, it was just a big family. The whole tenement was just a big family.
Did you have 4 rooms or 2 rooms?
We had 4 rooms. We grew up in 4 rooms, and one with my brothers and I slept. The other one was my sisters. The other was my mom and my dad, and of course the kitchen.
Yeah.
There's 4 rooms, you know, and very ironic. You know, I remember there's a private home right next to tenements. that came up for sale. And I remember my mom and my dad talking about it, that my mom wanted to buy it. And my dad was kind of reluctant to buy it. He was afraid of the debt. And my mom would argue with him that the girls needed more privacy. And we had 3 girls. And of course, in the tenements, you grew up where you have to share you have a commune facilities. You have no water, you have no gas. Privacy is not affordable at the tenements. So my mom convinced my dad to buy it.
Okay.
So they bought the house right next to the tenements.
Okay.
So we went from a tenement house to a house. They had facilities inside, the restroom, the shower, a water heater, everything inside. This is going to heaven here. So grew up. We never forget the tenements.
Yeah.
Most of my friends still stay in the tenements.
Yeah. And so then what schools did you go to?
I started at Roosevelt for a short time. And then from Roosevelt, I went to Bowie High School. When I was in Bowie High School, I think I was in the 9th grade, they give us some aptitude test for all of us. And they came back and talked to my dad, and they said that I had the aptitude to be a mechanic, that I should go to El Paso Technical High School and get a mechanic. And my old man, my father, not really having a trade, he says, I think it's good for you to go and have a trade so you can earn your living with a trade, not like me. So, and I was reluctant to go to tech, but he said, go for 1 year. If you don't like it, come back to Bowie. I never went back to Bowie. I stayed with tech. I really enjoyed it. I was able to meet a lot of people from a lot of other places other than the South Side. For the longest time, we felt that the world ended at Paisano.
Yeah.
In the Segundo Barrio, we said Paisano is the end of the world. But got out of the Segundo Barrio, met a lot of people from other places, from all throughout the city, because we had people from all over the city going to the trade school. And I stayed, and I graduated as a mechanic.
Wow. Wow.
Which
So you had you had earned the trade.
I earned the trade, and at the same token, tech, I was very impressed with it because it also had a very strong scholastic.
Oh, okay.
I met most of them. I met a couple of retired engineers that were teaching, and they had a very strong math department, and those are the people that really got me interested in the maths. I liked it, and I stayed with it. But La Tech had a strong scholastic program also.
And after you got out of tech, where'd you go?
I kind of meandered around. I job here, and I job here, and I job there. I finally went to Chicago, and because my sister had married a military person from Chicago, and they had moved to Chicago. And he worked in the mills. He was also an engineer at the time, and he worked at the mill. So I went with him, and he got me into the mills, and I became a certified pipe fitter.
Wow.
And I was doing very well financially, paid very well, but I never felt like that's what I wanted to do in life. I never felt that was my call. So it just happened that I got drafted into the service when I was working in Chicago.
How old were you?
I was about 21, 22 when I got drafted into the service.
Okay.
And so, it was a draft, so I went ahead and reported to the draft. And I went into the service. That was during the Vietnam War. And got drafted, went into the service, served my 2 years at the time, but at the same token, in the service, kind of turned my life around.
How so?
That I was able to compete very well with other people from throughout the country. people from Detroit, from New York. They had the draft, so they had people from everywhere. And I did very well with them. I competed very well. As a matter of fact, I became a sergeant when I was in the service, and I was kind of leading some people that at first I would think I was capable, but the Army gave me a lot of confidence in myself, really gave me a lot of confidence.
Wow, so you enjoyed that. What years were you in the?
I was in the Army 64 and 65.
Okay.
So
yeah, I got out in 66. Started 62, came out in 66.
I only went for 2 years. It was a draft.
Yeah.
And I chose not to stay. They said, I want to re-up. I said, no. When I got out of the service, I knew then that I wanted to go to college.
Ah, okay.
I knew that. I didn't know what I was going to study. All I knew is that I wanted to continue my education. And with the help of the GI, I went to enroll at the university. And so what do you want to study? Well, I don't know. I said, well, we'll just put you in general studies. That's fine. That's fine.
Was that here at
UTEP?
At UTEP.
And then at the time, they had the Veterans Office.
Yes.
And I still remember the Colonel Evans.
Yes,
was the head of the. Yes. And he asked me, hey, Fermin, do you have a job? No. Do you want a job? Well, I would like to have a part-time job. Okay, he said, go see this man at the engineering department. He is hiring students, especially veterans. So I went to the civil engineering department, talked to the dean of or the guy in charge of the civil engineering, and he said, yeah, we can use you, we have work. I says, but are you engineer? He says, are you in the engineering school? And I said, no, I am not. And he says, well, in order to have the job, you need to be in the engineering school. And I said, okay, how do I move to engineering school? Right. So you want to transfer? You go, yeah. Okay, so I'll take care of the paperwork.
Wow.
So well, I didn't know if I was going to be able to muster it. So I said, well, if I don't make it, I don't make it, but I'm going to do it. So I did it. I stayed. I enjoyed it. And to my surprise and the surprise of many people, I got out of there in 2.5 years.
You did a full engineering program in 2.5 years.
I went summer, exploring, everything. I went there. By the time, when I got back from the service, I was married.
Okay.
And we had a little girl. And we live in an apartment in Sunset. And actually, I wanted to get out of the apartment. So I told my wife, just be patient. Let me do it. We'll do it, and we'll move on.
Wow.
And I went, and I did it.
So you were highly motivated.
I was very highly motivated.
And you had the confidence now after the military.
And I had a lot of confidence in myself that I could do it. Yes.
So after finishing, then you went out for work.
Yeah, I got out, and as a matter of fact, I had some offers from. One of my first offers to go work was the FBI.
Really?
That's when Mr. Hoover was in kind of hire minorities.
Oh, when they started hiring minorities, that was after the suit.
It was before the suit.
Oh, okay.
He was under a lot of pressure by Congress to bring in minorities into the program. So I went and interviewed with him, and they did offer me a job. As a matter of fact, I was ready to go to the training camp over there in Virginia, and I back off. I said, no. And you know why I back off? Because I didn't want to leave my wife and my girl behind.
Okay.
I said, so no, I don't want to leave behind. And this guy said, well, it's only about, I think it was 7-8 months, the training. And I said, no, I don't want to do it. So what? I didn't go.
So you looked for a local job then?
I looked for a local job. I interviewed at the city, and they gave me the job. And that's where I stayed for 28 years.
28 years.
In the city. And I enjoy all of them, all of the 28 years. Mm-hmm.
So how long, because I had met you there when you were city engineer.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So how long did you work there before you became city engineer?
I think I worked there about 12 years.
Okay.
And I became the city engineer. Again, through the process, it was kind of difficult because there were a lot of obstacles to overcome as far as being the city engineer in the city of El Paso at the time. I remember that my first try at it, I was saying that I did not qualify to do it, and I challenged it. And with the help of some of the local representatives, like Galicia Chacon, and there was Orlando, they encouraged me to do it.
Yeah,
So I did, and I succeeded. I challenged it, and I won. I won the challenge.
at the time, was Alicia Chacon city representative?
He was a city representative
And-
from the,
and
and Orlando was a city representative.
Orlando Fonseca was
a city
rep.
representative.
And so they encouraged you.
They encouraged me and helped me, and come on, let's do it.
Okay.
And
So they gave it to you. Were you the first Hispanic city engineer?
I was the second Hispanic.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Jorge Vargas
Really?
was the first one.
A long
but
time before
long
you.
time
though.
before me, but he had retired.
Okay.
But he was the first one.
That'll be okay. And so, so one of the things I guess when you got in there, you saw some things that you wanted to change.
Well, there were some things that I figure were not representative of the community. We, at the time, I think we had 75% to 80% Hispanic population in El Paso, and most of the work was not going to the Hispanic community. We have very few representation as far as the people getting professional jobs from the city. Not because they were not qualified, it's just the system was such that it did not lend itself to hiring new companies, and especially Hispanics. So we kind of started working with the system, and with the help of the city attorney's office and the help of a lot of other people, we were able to rewrite the qualifications to hire local engineers and architects. And we started hiring local architects, and some of the Hispanic engineers and architects saw the opportunity to start their own companies. They've been working for other companies that were not Hispanic. So when that happened, we opened the door for a lot of the Hispanic companies to come and compete.
So before that, out-of-town companies were getting most of the work?
Out of town and local companies that been here for a long time. A lot of the old-timers that had been in El Paso for a long time, and they were good companies, but they were getting all the work.
How would they get to work?
They went through the qualification process. It was very, very narrow qualifications that kind of lend itself to you have to be in business for 20 years and things like that in order to keep these young companies from qualifying.
Oh, I see.
So we work, like I said, we work with the within the system. We work with the city attorney's office. We work with other people to help us rewrite the qualifications.
And so how did you, what were the qualifications now that after you got in there?
It was the same qualification. You just didn't have to be 40 years in the business, okay? And the thing about it is that all these people were doing the work for these other companies. They were not the owners, they were the workers. But they were already doing the work.
Okay.
So when they learned that we were letting new companies come and compete, a lot of the people started forming their own companies. And a lot of Hispanic companies were born. And we gave them the opportunity, and they performed very well. And we just kind of took off. And of course, some of the older companies were not very happy about it.
Yeah, you got a lot of.
I got a lot of flack from the politics and from the politicians, and I used to tell them, look, we're City of El Paso, and we need to be a mirror of the community. This is our job, to be a mirror of the community. These people are still getting work. They're just not getting all. Now, instead of getting all the work, you get a piece of the work like everybody else. They weren't happy with that because they were used to getting the whole.
What kind of engineering projects does the city award?
Oh, the airport work, a lot of the city buildings throughout the city, a lot of the street improvement plans, a lot of the storm control. That type of work was the one that was being.
A lot of architecture.
A lot of architects, a lot of civil engineering. Yes,
Okay.
that was the, and we had a lot of companies. They came out through the period, and
But-
some are still around.
But you had constantly were under fire for that.
I was constantly under fire because some of the older companies, they even say that I was being a very biased, prejudiced guy against the Anglo companies, and I said, no, I'm not. You're still getting work. You're still being considered. You're not getting it all. Before you were used to getting all the work. Now we have more competition. Now we have more companies, and we want to pass it around.
Wow. That was pretty significant. Now, were you involved in LULAC at that time?
Yes, I was. I've been involved in LULAC for a while. I have mainly because I wanted to help people in the scholastic side. LULAC has granted millions of dollars of scholarship through the years, and that's where I participated the most on raising money for scholarships. Like the Fiesta de las Flores was one of our avenues, and every year we gave between $40,000 and $50,000 scholarships for many years. So that was mainly my undertaking into the LULAC, maybe. And of course, once you're into the LULAC, you get involved in other civil rights movements that happen in the country, in the city of El Paso. Mm-hmm.
Did that cause you any issues at the city? Your
No,
involvement?
no. As a matter of fact, it gave me some respect.
Okay.
People respected me for being involved and for talking and for representing them. Like one of the things that I'm most proud of it was when the city of El Paso back in the 70s, everybody was elected at large. The community college, the city council, the schools, all the board, everything was elected at large. And we have very few Mexicanos representing us, very, very few.
Yeah.
Because they used to run as a team.
Yeah.
For place 1, place 2, place 3, and we had very few Hispanics in the boards or in the community on city council, and so with the assistance of LULAC, the Southwest Border Registration, MALDEF.
Right.
We sue the city. We sue everybody in it. We sue everybody that had that had at large.
Right.
And we sue them for single member districts.
Right.
Very fortunate, everybody agreed, except the school board.
Yeah.
Except the El Paso School Board.
Yeah, and I remember looking at the numbers. The school board representatives all came from 2 square mile area of town.
And everybody said, you don't have to sue us, we'll do it.
Okay.
Except the school board. Paso School District said, we're not going to do it. So we went to court, and the judge ruled in our favor that it should be a single member district. The federal court, I still remember the judge, Husband.
Yeah.
He ruled in our favor that we were right, that we.
And that changed the whole profile.
And that changed the whole profile of the city, from the school board to city council to to the county, everything changed as far as the politics.
Well, in fact, they changed the name from alderman to city council
right.
representative representing districts.
Yes.
Wow.
So to
You
me,
were,
that was a.
you were involved with that.
I was very, and I take a lot of pride on it. I really do.
Wow.
And I look back, as a matter of fact, sometimes, I kept a lot of the correspondence that we had back and forth then. And I somehow I said, I'm going to save it. And once in a while, I take it out and I kind of go through it and remember what happened.
He talked to you about that. That's interesting.
What happened here, So.
But then you started getting a lot of flack about the time before you retired from the city. You got.
At the end, like I said, I worked for the city for 28 years. I enjoyed 26 of them. The last 2 years were not enjoyable because I was in constant confrontation with the mayor of El Paso. Apparently, he didn't like my style of doing business as a city engineer, and I knew why, because a lot of his buddies were complaining that actually his buddies were complaining that you have to be a Mexican in order to get a job in the city of El Paso. Yeah. And I told them that wasn't true.
But before that, all the other mayors had supported you.
Oh yeah, everybody. I enjoy working with everybody. I even when Jonathan Rogers became mayor, which I admire, I thought he was really was going to give me a hard time because he was a developer himself. Yeah. And he had a lot of dealings with the engineering, and I know that sometimes it was not pleasant for him. But surprisingly enough, he was one of my biggest supporters.
Wow.
He was really a big supporter, and I got along with him just great. I was very impressed.
Well, I remember meeting you when I was working with the Mayor Tilney at the time, and one of the projects Tilney had was the farm workers building, and you were instrumental in that. I remember. Did you have to fight to get that done?
It was not fight, but I think we need to do a lot of legwork in order to get the project to qualify for grant, because it was done through the Community Development Action grants. And in order to make it qualified, we had to do a lot of legwork, not only myself. That was the Central Business District came into play, especially Mr. Berkman, Mr. Tyne.
I had met you when you were the city engineer. I guess you'd been there quite a while. This was toward the end of your tenure. And we were talking about you're being instrumental in building the Farm Worker Center. And I remember that Mayor Tilney was very excited about your really pushing that through. After he left office, though, a new mayor came in, and is that when your tenure as city engineer became difficult?
It became pleasant, to say the least, because we just clashed as far as personalities were concerned, and it was very difficult to have your boss, he was my boss as being the mayor of El Paso, to not get along with it. It is difficult, to say the least. It gets to a point where no matter what you say, that's not the right thing to say. And no matter what you do, that's not the right thing to do. That it got into a point where no matter what I do or did was not pleasant to him. And we had a lot of confrontations, and some of the confrontations were not pleasant.
Now that was under the strong mayor form of government.
Yes, that was under that form of strong government.
Where you reported as department.
I reported well. We have at the time we had what they call the CEO, Chief Executive Officer, which was Dr. Beasley.
Dr. Beasley, I worked with.
And I had no problem with him. Him and I got along fine. But I think he himself had a problem getting along with the mayor at the time. He himself was not. As a matter of fact, he left before I did. No, he left right after I did.
Okay.
I think he had the same problem I was having, that he just couldn't get along with it. And it became difficult to do work. I got accused of many things. Of course, favoring the Hispanic architects and engineers, that was the biggest one. Yeah. Looking the other side, looking the other way when they did something wrong, which was not true. And things like that, it just came one after the other, and I said, it is difficult to work.
Yeah, but it got a little heavier, didn't it?
It got very heavy. It got very heavy. And he pushed, I pushed back. As a matter of fact, in one of our conversations, Dr. Beasley was present, and he says, Fermin, the way you talk to the mayor is not right. The way you answer the mayor is not right. And I said, and I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing. But the way he asked me the questions is not right either. Saying he wants my respect, he has it, but he needs to respect me, and he has no respect for me. Wow. So I have no respect for him. Wow. So it got heavy and got personal sometimes.
And then they brought in some heavy investigations.
It happened afterwards, after I retired.
Oh, after you retired.
I was, it happened after as I was getting one time before I retired. One time I was getting up to go to work about 6 in the morning, and my wife was right next to me, and I said, you know what? I'm going to retire. Oh, I want to retire. And he just looks at me and says, what happened? Has the politics of the city changed that much? And I looked at her for a while, and I said, I think it's me that is changing. I think the politics are the same. I think it's just me that has changed. Seems like I don't have the talent or the patience to put up with it anymore. So you want to retire? I want to retire. So that morning, I made the decision that I was going to retire.
After 28 years?
After 28 years, I went in, talked to Beasley, because he was my...
Right.
And I said, well, you want me... They've been asking me to retire for a while. So I said... and Beasley and I have been back and forth in kind of negotiations for my retirement. And I went home. That morning I went to work, and I put a list of items that I wanted them to concede to me. And I gave it to him. And so I know that you and the mayor wants me to retire for a long time. Okay, I will, if you can meet what I'm asking. And looked at it and says, the mayor's never going to agree to your list. So fine. Then I'll just stick around. And I think a month later, I forgot about it. He called me. Says the mayor has agreed to all your demands. I said, well, they're not demands. They're concessions. So well, he had agreed.
Fantastic. But the pressure on you was because you had really helped the Hispanic engineering community.
Yes.
Get into contracts, because you leveled the way.
And the contractors, and not only the engineering and the contractors also.
Oh, contractors too.
Yes, I was also helping them put it together. This is how you want to be a successful bidder. This is how you do it. I kind of train them, give them classes. This is how you bid a job. This is what we're looking for. This is why you need to be good.
Okay, so you're encouraging people to apply for the contracts.
Yes, and some of them did, and some of them became very successful too, very successful contractors.
But that was the door that opened it.
Yes, we opened the door for them, but we started with the engineers and the architects.
So now you're retired.
Yes.
Now what happens?
When I retired, one of the first questions my wife asked me, now that you retire, are you going to spend time with me? Because when you were in engineering, I hardly ever saw you. You were always too busy doing that. I said, yeah, I'm going to stay home. Well, I stayed home for 6 months. and I was driving her crazy, and she was driving me crazy. So I tell her, you know what? I think we're gonna open an office. And he looks around at me and says, "It's about time."
Good.
So I went and opened an office. And first it was just me, just kind of some place to go and drink coffee and do the crossword puzzle. So a one-room office that I rented, and mainly to just kind of stay out of the way of my wife.
But you put a shingle up engineering.
Yeah, I put engineering, and little by little, some of the friends that I have and start coming and hire me and get my service. And I had built a lot of friends,
Yeah.
so they started calling on me.
What kind of engineering were you doing?
I'm doing the civil engineering, mainly the public works improvements, streets, shopping centers, things like that.
You do the math, the drawings.
We do the specs, the drawings. We do a lot of flood control for the city.
And what year was that you started?
I started in '96.
Okay.
I retired at my birthday.
Really?
The day of my birthday, I retired.
Wow. And then you started your business.
I started my business slowly, and I had asked my son to come and join the firm, but he said, "No, I don't want to be an engineer. I want to do something else." Oh, fine, that's fine. And one day he says, "Is the offer still open?" I said, "Yeah." So he joined the firm, and we've been working together ever since.
Isn't that great?
So, and mainly right now, more and more, he's kind of taking over the business.
So he went back to school too?
He went back to school. He got his degree. He got married now. He's got kids, and he's more involved with the business than I am, because that's more his livelihood than mine now.
So you really brought him into the business and trained him.
I train him. I still do. I'm sort of the quality control person in the business. I review the plans, make sure they're right. I give him guidance how to go about it, how to do, where to look.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How many employees do you have now?
Right now we have 6. It's a small firm.
Yeah, but you've got some pretty decent contracts.
Oh yeah, and I have a lot of people, a lot of my friends that are also retired. They're engineers and draftsmen and technicians. And whenever I need more help, I pick up the phone and I call them, and that's what they want to do. They don't want to work permanent.
Yeah.
They will come and say, "Okay, we'll help you with this project. When this project is done, we're free to go." I say, "Okay." Mm-hmm.
So you've got a whole pool of friends.
Oh yeah, I do. I have a lot of pool of help.
What kind of obstacles did you face starting the business?
I guess the biggest obstacle was myself, because I have never done a private enterprise. I have always been on the other side of the enterprise. I have always represented the city and not really know the rules well enough in the private sector.
But if anybody was prepared as an engineer, you were.
Well, the technical side was not a problem. The technical side was very well. That was not the problem. The problem is the other side, the business side. How do you run a business? How do you make sure that Uncle Sam, you don't get in trouble with Uncle Sam? How do you make sure that this is done right?
So how did you learn that?
My daughter, she's a CPA, and she said, "Hey, Dad, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this." And she's the one that kind of. So now she don't work for me. She works for a bank, but she's sort of like, "Well, is this right? As far as Uncle, yeah, that's right," or "No, that's not right." So that's the.
So she helped get your finances in order.
Yeah, she helps me and string me out. And you can do that. You cannot do that. This is what you can do. But like I said, that was the hard part. The technical side was not the problem, or getting work. That was not the problem either. Because, like I said, I had some friends and people that I had built relationship. They knew of my ability as an engineer, and they felt confident with me. So
here you have, you have sales,
right,
and now you're getting your finances in order,
right.
You know the technical side very well,
very well.
but there were still some gaps.
Yes.
And what were those? What kind of gaps were those?
Well, some people still did not have feel confident with me, especially the banks, the financial institution. And luckily enough, I had a friend, my tocayo.
Yeah.
He's the guy that helped me the most.
Okay.
As far as the financial side was. And also I had a friend at the Bank of the West, Robert Moreno, and he also helped me a great deal in the finances. And he's a guy that says, this is the way you start a business for me.
So Fermin Acosta,
Fermin Acosta,
GECU helped you?
A great deal,
And
very much.
But because the banks weren't open to you?
No, because I didn't have a track record. And again, the one that really opened the door was Bank of the West with Jonathan Rogers.
That's right, because he was president of the bank, but he'd been mayor.
And he knew me personally, so I did not have a problem getting a line of credit from them.
Okay.
To do that.
Okay. Because you had all these engineering experience.
Yes.
It's just the business experience you did.
It's just the business.
Is it a real difference between running a city department and then running a business?
Yes, it is. When you work for the city, whether you want to or not, you're a bureaucrat. Even if you don't want to be, the system has so many rules that it makes it difficult to do things from one day to the other, or what it takes in the private sector, maybe 2-3 days to put it together. It probably took 2 or 3 weeks in the bureaucracy to do it, because that's just the way the bureaucracy is, and that's the biggest difference there is.
So you had to debureaucratize yourself.
Yes, I have to do that. Yes.
Was that hard to do?
It was hard. Yes.
Deinstitutionalize your thinking.
Yes.
Wow.
Now I get frustrated with them.
Okay.
Now when I go to the city, I get frustrated working with them.
Now you understand what the engineers were complaining about.
Now I understand. Yes.
It's a big. Before though, when you were starting your business, you had I know that you were under attack in a very heavy way from the city.
When after about a year after I retired, all of a sudden I was being investigated. Supposedly by some study that the city had hired somebody to do KPM. Is that the right name?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
KPM.
It was Pete Mark Mitchell.
Yes.
Yeah.
They did a study in the city,
audit.
an audit in the city, and they came out that it looked like I favor some Hispanic contractors to the point that I was receiving money. I've been away from the city for a year, and all of a sudden, I was being accused of doing this. As a matter of fact, there was an FBI investigation on this. The FBI came in and investigated me, and I said, well, they keep saying that I was taking money, and I remember asking, well, fine, but in order to take money, it has to give a giver and a taker. Who the hell is the giver? Who is the giver here? Because I don't remember who is the giver. And it was hard in the family. And especially for my wife, it was probably harder for her than it was on me. She went through a lot.
How long did that last?
It lasted about 2 years.
Yeah.
The investigation lasted about 2 years. So that kind of hindered the business also.
Yeah, how did it
kind of hindered the people even the people from the city that were my friends, they weren't sure whether they should help me or not, or whether it was going to affect them by helping me, or how. A lot of people kind of stay away from me because they didn't want to be, I guess, tinted.
Right. or associated, right?
or association.
Yeah.
So that kind of isolated me a little bit also from some of the people that I done business with, because they weren't sure whether I was true or not.
So even just the accusation
Mm-hmm.
is enough to put a mark on you and your business.
Well, it did, and it did a mark, because even after that, I know that I had interviewed for some very good jobs, and the interview does very well, but I don't succeed in getting the work. And some people that are in the system where I was trying to get it, they give a check on you, and
So
those
just-
things coming up.
Just left you
I'll
alone.
leave you alone. He said, I know this is not true, but I don't want to take a chance.
So they delayed. So after 2 years
Yes.
of
Even now, it still comes up.
really,
Even now, once in a while, it comes up. They say, hey. And it's right. I remember when finally the thing was over with, the Herald Post reporter at the time was David Crowder.
yeah, David Crowder.
I remember I call him and I say, hey, David, when they accused me of doing this, you gave me headlines on the front page. I'm going to tell you, I'm free. I was found that all the accusations were not true. Are you going to give me headlines? And he did.
Really?
He did.
Wow.
He sure did. I still have them this way.
Yeah.
I still have those newspapers.
That was a relief.
That was a big relief for the whole family, for my wife, for my kids, for myself, for everybody. It was a big relief.
Is that a device that you've seen used when somebody gets competitive? Is a charge like that?
I think it is. I think that it's used somewhere along the line when a Hispanic gets to build and kind of becomes a little bit a leader in the community. He kind of has respect of some of the people. There's always a way. How can we burn him? How can we remove him? And I think it's still happening to that. Okay, you see Hispanic get up, become a leader, gain the respect, and then all of a sudden we start burning. It starts burning them. You see what happens. I don't have to tell you what's been happening in the last 2-3 years in the community.
How did you keep yourself, we can talk about integrity, but all those years you were in the city, what kept you from getting into situations that might have been compromising?
I was never approached.
Okay.
Nobody ever approached me into a compromising position. Never. And if they did, maybe it went over my head. But I don't remember anybody asking me to compromise myself.
Do you think that maybe because they knew that you wouldn't?
Well, I hope so. I hope so, but maybe they knew about my integrity. I always treated everybody, as far as I'm concerned, straight and fair, at least in my book. Maybe not in their book, but in my book, I always treat them straight and fair. I never double deal them. I always tell them what I thought. So maybe that has something to do with it, but never. I was never, and I dealt with some very heavy people, but nobody. As a matter of fact, they all treat me very well.
So carrying that into your business,
Mhm.
how do you carry that on in your business?
Well, you carry into your business the same thing, when a lot of people will come and say, hey, I want you to do this work for me, and you tell them, well, you're fine, you want me to do this work, it's going to cost X number of dollars. And he says, well, that guy over there, he does it for less dollars than you do it, but I want you to do it if you match the price. And I said, no, you go hire them. I don't do that. I give you a price as my fair price to you, and I'm going to give you a good product. So if you want to go with the other person, fine. That's a business decision, and I respect your decision for
But
it.
most people stay with you anyway.
Most people do.
Yeah,
Most people,
because you're known as a man of integrity.
Yes, most people do, and I like to deal with them, and that's something that I want to pass to my son, and I consistently tell him, man, you need to have a word. When you say no, it means no. When you say a guy, you're going to have his work done in a week, you have it in a week, even you have to work 24 hours. Be a man of your word, always.
How do you pass that on?
Well, I guess just over and over. Just you need to tell him by example. You say, son, we promised this man that we were going to do that. Now we don't have to stay here late and work late. We're going to do it because we promised him that we're going to do it. So we're going to do it. He's going to do what it takes because we had given our word. So and people know that.
What have been your biggest regrets now in your business?
I don't know, probably not to be as ambitious maybe as I should have been. I thought very small all the time.
Really?
I have not really. My son now wants to talk big. I said, no, you take over and then you go big. I guess I have chosen to stay small.
Why?
You know, one of the biggest things that I tell my son is that I would find it very difficult to lay off somebody, especially if I know that person has responsibilities. I would find it very difficult to do it, to tell him you don't have a job. That's probably one of them that I think I would feel very uncomfortable telling that person that.
It's a huge responsibility to be an employer.
Yes, well, in my books, yes. Because maybe I see it more as a business, more of a, maybe it's simple. So that's part of some people say, that's part of the business. Well, fine, but not with me. It's not part of my business.
So, what have your biggest successes been in business?
Being happy with myself and being very content.
Has business brought you a fulfillment?
In a way, it has, yes, because I always wanted to prove that I could do it on the outside of the bureaucracy, and I have. I always looked at it as a challenge, doing it on the other side.
And you're still contributing to the community.
Yes, I still do.
You're still involved with LULAC?
I do that.
You were national officer with LULAC?
I was national officer with LULAC. I traveled. I did a lot of good nationwide. We traveled nation. So
And you're still giving?
Yes, not as much, but we're still doing it. We still get involved. We still a lot of people still call. I receive a lot of calls for help.
If you had one message to give a young entrepreneur, what would that message be?
Don't be afraid to fail.
Why do you say that?
Because if you're afraid to fail, you're never going to succeed.
Have you failed?
Many times. Many times. But I have always been able to get up and move on.
Well, Mr. Dorado, it's been a wonderful story that you have. I think that it's a story we need to have in our library of stories. And you have certainly led a life, and I say exemplary because people can follow your lead. And like you say, you lead by example, and you're training your children. And so you have a legacy, and you're leaving a legacy. And that's important to you.
Very important. I want to pass what my grandfather left me, his legacy. I want to pass it on.
Well, I thank you so much for your for your sharing with us and the memory of your grandfather and your father who's still alive. Really appreciate your story and your time. And we thank the viewers for taking time to listen to these stories and encourage you to keep tuned to these shows as we present these stories of Hispanic entrepreneurs. Thank you and have a good day.